Lake Forest podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course, Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters: Matt A., Elizabeth C., Costa, Lance, Otto, RDM, John C., and Helen. Shout out to the Lake Forest Breakfast Group, Broad Stop and Captain Mike's in Kenosha, the Greentown Tavern, and the Frolic Lounge in Waukegan. Rick Amos, welcome back to the Lake Forest podcast. I hear you know something a little bit about Friends of Parks and Rec. Is that so?
A little bit, yeah. 18 years now I've been on the Park and Rec Foundation Board. It's been fun.
Wonderful. Yeah. You get all the blame and none of the credit.
Well, I get a lot of the credit and just a little bit of the blame. Probably more credit than I deserve, and probably not enough blame than I deserve. Right?
Well, Rick, tell because we got a lot of new people that moved in the area. What is Friends of Park and Rec, and how is that different from Parks and Rec?
Yeah, good point. So the Friends Foundation is essentially a volunteer group of folks in the community that are aiming to support the needs of the Park and Recreation Department of Lake Forest. As you know, it's unlike other North Shore communities. It's not a taxing authority, so it's not a park district, part of the city government. So we are an advocacy group that works with Sally Swarthout and Joe Mobile and others within the city to, in essence, do all things about community events and helping out the Park and Recreation Department. So that's things like farming studies, funding scholarships, help raising funds to provide for things that maybe not within the city budget, and a variety of things. And so we do fundraising to support that cause, and a big part of that is we host 4 events a year in the community for community outreach that help go to support all those activities and raise some dollars.
And what are those 4 events, Rick?
So we have a golf outing, the Fred Jackson Golf Outing, which is next Friday, June 2nd at Deerpath. About 144 golfers will participate in that event for the day. And then we also have the 4th of July Festival and Fireworks, obviously on the 4th, at what has always been Deerpath Community Park. And there's a little bit of an adjustment this year with the turf field project going in. Then we have a music festival. This year it's August 19th in the parking lot behind City Hall. And then finally, the tree lighting festival, which is the Friday after Thanksgiving, which is in Market Square. So those are our 4 big community events for all to attend.
So you raise the money. Where does the money go?
So we raise funds, and then 100% of the proceeds go back to the Park and Recreation Department. So there's a variety of projects that we get involved in. As an example, we helped raise funds for the pavilion out at Town Line Community Park a number of years ago. We've been involved in the Deerpath golf course renovation project, raising funds for that. We funded the study along with Parks and Recreation Department in terms of the assets the community wanted, which, gosh, 6 years ago was a survey with the community, which the turf fields became the number 1 demand. And here we are 6 years later under construction for that. And so currently we're also working on the pathway project down to Lake Forest Beach. As you know, they took out the ramp a couple years ago due to the sliding of the bluff. And so the city's engaged a study to go back in and put that ADA compliant pathway back down to the beach. And so we are raising $1.5 million for that project, which is just now starting. So all sorts of different things. But a lot of it is scholarship. You know, there's needy families in town. You know, with the economy being the way it is, there's folks that always need some help with some scholarships. So we raise a lot of funds for that too, if you will, to help kids attend programs through the Park and Recreation Department.
Rick, you got something?
I just wanted to, first, I'm a huge fan of your organization. You guys have done a great job, particularly the tree lighting ceremony, which the chamber used to do back in the day, and it's you guys have picked that up and done a great job with it. The 4th of July concert. Who's our band this year?
Yeah, so a couple things. I'm glad you brought that up. So, you know, with the construction
of the
community park, we are moving back to the east lot of Deerpath Middle School. So for those that remember the symphony years ago, that's where they used to host the event. So we will be there this year since we can't use Deerpath Community Park. Mm-hmm. So we'll be back and set. The events will be primarily the same as they have been from previous years. The location will be just a little bit to the north there. And so we have 2 bands playing. We have Fletcher Rockwell playing, who will be our opening band. It's a great Chicago area band. And then our headliner this year is Run Forest Run, which was kind of a 80s, 90s, 2000s cover band. That's also from the Chicagoland area. A lot of people will know of both bands. They're in the area and they have a nice draw. So it'll be a great event. The gates open at 5 p.m. They'll be Ravinia style, so you can come in with your chairs and your coolers just like you have in the past. There'll be food vendors there, beverage vendors there, and then kids games and activities for the little ones as well. And then obviously around the big thing of the night is the fireworks. So those will go off about 9:40, 9:45 at the end of the day.
Oh. So the Deerpath Park, the fireworks, what's going to be different
for this year? So we've adjusted the program a little bit this year because we've added about 800 feet to the north for the viewing area. So we've altered the program a little bit. So we'll shoot them up a little bit higher and a little broader. We won't have a lot of the low level stuff because you won't be able to see it. So we've altered the program a little bit this year to compensate for the added distance. But in terms of the event, it'll pretty much run as it has the past, basically 5 to 10 p.m.
Good.
On a Tuesday here.
Sound like good choices for bands too. I'm glad to see that. I remember a couple of years ago I saw Wynona Judd there, and as usual, all the Lake Foresters were just talking to each other, and because that's what we do, and partying. It's been the end of the 4th of July, so everybody's in a good mood. And poor Wynona Judd is up there trying to sing, and nobody's paying any attention to her.
Is that why Paul Hamman was upset about we spend so much money on musical artists or something? Remember that in the mayoral debate?
Yeah, they had Rick Springfield. They had Rick Springfield one time, and him everybody listened to. He was, everybody wanted to hear him. But Wynona Judd was kind of upset, I think, that nobody was paying any attention to her.
We've had some great performers over the years. As I said, this is our 18th year. So Eddie Money all the way up to Rick Springfield, Kenny Loggins, Lou Graham from Foreigner. So we've had quite a diverse group. We've made a shift in our strategy because Rick, you raised a great point, which is folks are there to visit with each other and see the fireworks, and it's kind of a community family event. And the fact that there's music is great, but nobody's, or at least half the people aren't paying attention.
Most people aren't there. It's not a formal concert like where you're there to see
correct.
the band.
You're there to see the band. So correct. So we've kind of shifted away, if you will, to the music festival of maybe spending a little bit more money on artists for that event, which is a music themed event primarily. And
that's the August one that's over in the parking lots on Deerpath.
Correct. August.
Was that last year? Was that the first time we've done that?
No, actually, this is our 5th year of doing it. We moved venue a couple of times. We've been rained out twice. So
right
we've struggled with the event over the past couple of years, and even last year, there was 90% thunderstorms up until about 45 minutes before the
now.
gate opened. So attendance was probably about half of what we hoped it was going to be.
I was there for that. It was very good event though. The bands having the two different bands going, so that there was a band going at all times.
Yeah.
Was very entertaining, and there was the food was very good. There was no problem getting to the food vendors because we were a little under attended. I think.
Exactly.
Hopefully, maybe better weather, we can get a good turnout.
Joe?
So, being new to Lake Forest, we moved here in August, so this will be our first 4th of July in Lake Forest. My question is there a parade? What?
No, I'll be glad to give you a little background on that. Lake Bluff has the parade. Lake Bluff has an immense parade. People come from all over Lake Forest, Libertyville. We get about 25. Lake Bluff has a population of approximately 5,000. We get 25,000 people out for the parade. It's that kind of a thing. It is. We have usually my wife for 15 years was the kind of the parade master in terms of putting the whole parade together. We used to go out to other parades to see and recruit bands and get them and other acts. And the parade is really something. But it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's over at noon. Everybody has been imbibing adult beverages in the morning, and so everybody takes a nap in the afternoon, and then wakes up and goes to Lake Forest for the concert and the fireworks. So we have kind of a nice little symbiotic relationship where Lake Bluff does the parade and Lake Forest does the concert, and everybody goes to both.
Yeah, and I think it's worked out well. Lake Bluff has done such a wonderful job of building that parade over the years that why mess with that, right? So we strategically moved our festival later in the day to give folks a chance to go home and relax a little bit and then come over to our event. So it's a nice partnership between really sister communities. I think it really works well for both.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I very much agree. Yes.
And then Rick, I mean, you had so many curveballs last year. And it's all your fault, man. The tickets that you buy, do you think if it's marketed as a donation, it's not a ticket, it's a donation? That way there's no expectation of I want my money back?
You would like to think that, Pete, but not really.
Not really?
Not really. Last year was tough with the Highland Park shooting.
Yeah.
We shut down for all the right reasons, and it was an awful day for everybody, right? But we had a lot of folks that said, "Hey, I understand. I know it's a fundraiser. Keep my money."
Yeah.
And then there's always some that are saying, "Hey, you didn't throw the event. I want my money back." And so we refunded.
Yeah.
We refunded the money. We had vendors. The challenge with events, all communities are doing them. We were somewhat unique 18 years ago when we did this in terms of bringing in headliners and making it a festival. Now everybody's doing it because it's a great community event. It gets people out, and Lord knows we need a lot more of that now in our community. And part of our mission is community engagement, right? One of the things that makes Lake Bluff and Lake Forest so great is, there's always something going on about every weekend that gets people out of the house and gets them out there interacting with each other. And, like you, Joe, I moved here 20 years ago. And, when Christmas rolls around, everybody hides kind of until May, right? Due to the weather. So when summer rolls around, we're ready to go. And this has been quite fun to get folks out and doing these kind of things to visit with their neighbors and just entertain them and hang out. So anyway, last year was a challenge, but we have to pay, we pay our vendors up front. So we had a tough time last year. The city of Lake Forest, really Mayor Pandeleon and City Council, Elizabeth Holub, they all worked with us to help us. We're a not-for-profit group, right? So the city stepped up because we canceled and kind of bailed us out financially last year. So that was much appreciated, but a tough day. And so this year fingers crossed, we're going to have a good day.
Oh, absolutely. Odds got to be in your favor eventually, Rick.
Well, they are, it's funny you mention it. So when you do these things, you worry about what goes wrong, not what goes right. That takes care of
Yep.
itself. What goes wrong?
Mm.
18 years, we've never been rained out. So we have rain insurance, right? So for example, if we get rained out, we get covered. We have insurance coverage for that, right? So we keep thinking that, hey, so far so good, but one of these
You better look at that coverage, man, because it depends where the rain is measured, and those guys don't want to pay that money easily, Rick. You know that.
I know, but yeah, well, we're on site. We measure on site just to make sure, and we're in good standing. So but someday it's going to happen.
All right, all right.
Eventually. Mm-hmm.
So, Rick, we got two sides. We got for and against. Okay. For let's talk about August. You have people out there. My guy Paul Hamman Eggs, who's a loyal listener and watcher. He just he tried to run for mayor, and we tried to get him across the line, but he was no match for Dr. Tack. But he's bringing up, why do you got to do the headline in August? Why not do a lower risk band? Because at the end of the day, it's you're netting out cash to buy basketballs. I'm trying to dumb it down a lot, but how do you dress when somebody says that, Rick?
Well, I think Mr. Hammond makes a fair point. The cost of these events is really gone through the roof. So this is a fundraiser, right? And to Rick's point earlier, how many people are really turning out for a headliner, a national act? And the answer is not many, especially for 4th of July. Last year we brought in Maddie and Tay, which is an up and coming country artist. And they were wonderful last year, and everybody enjoyed it.
It was 2 years ago.
So last year they were last year. We had Joe Nichols 2 years ago. And we have 4 bands, 2 stages. And so to Mr. Hammond's point and others, he's not wrong, and he's not alone in his thinking that, there is this fiscal responsibility. And so, we did a study and basically came back and said, listen, unless we're going to go out and spend $30,000-$50,000 to market and advertise this with billboards to draw folks from outside the neighboring communities to our event, these folks really aren't going to draw enough people in to justify the additional fee. So this year, the decision was made is that we will stay local with regional Chicago area bands that are more affordable, more reasonable. And so this year, we're going to try that with 4th of July and for Music Festival and kind of see how the economics go. Because, if you get 5,000 or 6,000 people, you can have a national act. If you get 3,000 people, you better have a local act, because the difference is the production costs and the talent costs for a national band.
Yeah.
Well, Rick,
fundraisers are best if they make money. Yes.
Well, Rick, I know a pretty good Blondie tribute band. If you open up one of those stages, I might be able to fit somebody over there. But I'll solicit you
we
later.
are always looking for talented bands. So if anybody has any names out there they want us to consider, please send it.
Heart of Glass. That would be the band I would recommend. I'll get back to you on that, Rick. All right, so we got Memorial Day coming up. Is that when the beach opens?
Beach is open now.
But I mean, is that like the pop the champagne and go down there?
Yeah, it's kind of the official. You had asked earlier, what's the difference between us and the Park and Recreation Board? And again, we're a fundraising not-for-profit group that supports the Park and Recreation Board, works with city staff to do things like you just asked, which is, when do we open the beach? When do we staff it? When do we close it after Labor Day? And so things of that nature. What are the fees? What are the programming guidelines? Deerpath Community Park, they're heavily involved in the programming aspect of that. But to your question, yeah, the beach is open, but officially this weekend, it's the guards will be posted and folks will be at the top making sure you have the appropriate credentials, if you will, to park down at the beach.
So
and anybody and affix it to your windshield. and don't give those kids a hard time, you idiots.
What kids?
The people, okay, they're not all kids. The people that check at the top and the bottom, okay, generally you'll have an older gentleman and you'll have somebody younger that's up there, and then somebody's having a bad day that doesn't have their license on them, they'll berate the kid, and I'm like, come on now, That's not the Lake Forest way.
Not the Lake Forest way, but it does happen. So yeah, come prepared.
And
I like the screening. I like this. I like that it's just people from Lake Forest. I kind of like that, as opposed to just anybody can come.
Well, anybody can come.
Chicago beach mentality.
Yeah, anybody can come, but you have to pay a fee if you're non-resident, and
Yeah.
that was simply to moderate the amount of people. It's a wonderful beach. I think one of the best, if not the best, on the North Shore of Chicago. And there's only X amount of spots down there for X amount of people, right? And much like our community events, we love the fact that folks from Glencoe and Highland Park and Lincolnshire and other communities, Vernon Hills, will come. But really, our events are we don't want 10,000 people there. We want it to be a Lake Forest, Lake Bluff community event, and bring your friends and the neighboring folks to come. But we're not necessarily looking to draw people from 15, 20 miles away. And I think the beach is the same way.
I think part of the beach was the large cost in the 1980s of doing the full renovation of the beach. I mean, they trucked in an immense amount of sand and rock and really terraformed the whole coast there into these coves and made a beautiful, beautiful beach. But it was a substantial expense for the taxpayers at the time. And I think that's part of the justification for charging people to use the beach, is that it cost money to create it.
Yeah, yeah. And there's new sand down there in the adult pod, if you will, which is to the north end in there because of the erosion. New vendors down there, so there's food and beverages, and if you haven't been to the beach yet, you're seeing some new stuff down there this year.
Let's talk vendors, Rick, because that's a hot
that's
button.
good news. That's good news. Yeah.
Rick, big surprise. I happen to like my libations down at the beach, and
I'm shocked.
After I go down those steps, is quite a bit of steps, and I'm a little bit parched when I get down there, but the place isn't always open. How do we staff that, or do we do food trucks? Like, what's holding up having a third party down there that'll take the risk of having the staff open and providing concessions?
I don't think they allow any alcoholic beverages there, do they?
Oh yeah, they do. Our Dr. Tack got it down there, my friend.
Okay, good. There's progress in the world.
So it's a programming challenge, Pete, to your point, which is to staff it. How much activity you're going to get to warrant the staffing. They do use third-party vendors down there to staff and supply things throughout the year. So some of that is ongoing. But generally it's a supply and demand issue, right? If more people used it, it'd be easier to staff it and have longer hours. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of hit or miss in terms of its usage. So, I think I'm not exactly sure of the policy, but they are open for a certain amount of hours. But if it's a poor day and traffic is light, then sometimes they will close early.
That's what I'm saying with the food trucks. If you do the food trucks, they can pull up and pull out. And that there's something.
It's great in theory, not practical. Not because we don't want it, but because the vendors aren't there. I'll give you two examples. When we started hosting the 4th of July festival, everybody's like, "Well, why are you bringing in vendors from Chicago? Why don't you get the local restaurants to do this?" And the answer is they're not staffed and they don't have the equipment to do it, or they don't want to do it on the 4th of July. Same thing for music festivals. We try and ask local vendors to come in and serve in the community, create awareness. There's people coming in from out of town. It's a great way to get your restaurant notified. And they simply choose to say, we're just not set up to do that. So the food truck business is the way of the future. We engage. We have the city has about 20 vendors that have been approved, because you got to go through the Lake County Health Department, get a permit, that kind of stuff. So we have a pool of about 20 vendors that the city uses on a regular basis. And even then, folks, we had folks, you weren't here, Pete, before you moved here. We had an Oktoberfest festival.
Yeah.
And the German vendor didn't show up for the event. So we were serving burgers and Indian food. at October.
I think I was there for that one. Yeah.
You can imagine there were a few people that were like, "What is wrong with you people?"
Well, the food truck thing seems to be a great way to go with it because it's portable. They're out there. I had to run an errand last Saturday at Home Depot in Vernon Hills, and there was a pierogi food truck pulled up by the Home Depot there.
It does, but it doesn't even have to be a truck, Rick, because maybe I got my facts wrong because I'm always right, Rick. Just ask my wife. But Left Bank used to have a hot dog wagon down there, right? And supposedly they can't do it. They want to do it, but there's some obstacle. I don't know what it is. And then on other vendors, I'm sure Jeff Urso, he's got the scale down to provide down there. But what I'm hearing, and I don't have any facts because the fact checkers left, that there's something being held up with the city to allow people to go down there and do that. That's what I heard. That's all I'm saying.
I don't, it's always somewhere in the middle, right? And Jeff's doing a nice job. He has a lot of events in town. He's going to be working our event, not 4th of July, but he'll be at Music Festival. He'll be at the golf outing serving. So he's got a nice business going. But it's a permitting and staffing issue. I will tell you this with the restaurants, because we've had a lot of folks would love to be involved. It's labor shortage issues or the cost of labor right now. The post-pandemic challenge of being in the restaurant business, when those issues are still there, and just getting their restaurant staffed or getting people to show up is challenge number one, let alone doing a one-off event, if you will.
Right. Really. All right, we'll let you go on that, Rick. Joe's a newcomer. Joe, you weren't around when did you get here, Joe? You weren't around
August
Christmas time.
13th.
August. Oh, so did you see the tree lighting and all that stuff?
I saw the show about it with Rick and John Powers, but unfortunately we had a schedule conflict that day.
So they do the lighting. Rick, where does that tree come from?
Good question. So a variety of places. Sometimes there's a tree that needs to be removed in the community. And so the timing will be as such as to remove that tree and set it up for a month. Usually there's a tree donated somewhere, or open lands, or somebody has a tree that they'll donate. So there's a variety of places that we're always looking to go grab a 65-foot Christmas tree.
Yeah, I must be. Last year, I thought was really the best one that tree lighting you've done. They even had a band, I think. After there's a band afterwards, which was new. That was
we did. So last year, the funny thing about the tree lighting ceremony is it starts about 4:15, and by 5:30 it's over, right? And so there's a lot of setup to do that. So the thought is, hey, how do we get folks to come, stay longer, and enjoy again a community event? And so last year was a new twist for us. We brought in food and beverages, kids activities, writing letters to Santa Claus, cookie decorating. Vendors gave away donuts. I think the Ortel group, the local real estate group, gave away 1,000 donuts to folks, and hot chocolate and stuff. So last year was our first attempt. So we brought in a band after the caroling and after the ceremony to play, and the weather was particularly warm last year, which was wonderful. So we had about 5,800 people show up for tree lighting. So Market Square has never seen so many people. So we have already begun the planning for this year's event. So we're going to tweak the schedule a little bit, but it'll be similar to last year in terms of having things for multiple people to do, and food and drink available for those that want to do it.
And they had adult beverages.
Lake Forest podcast stand at all these events. What do you think, Pete?
It's Pete walking around with his on-air sign. So how did that work out? Stretching it out. You started it earlier,
we started at 3:00 and we went till 8. 8 was probably two things. It felt a little long. So this year we're going to stop around 7. Because it is cool outside and it was unusually warm last year. So again,
I was going to say, you got good weather for that. You're like, wait, I don't want it now.
3 to 7 next year. So there'll be kids' activities. We'll have a band. We'll have the carolers. So the program will be similar. We'll have hopefully more food vendors and more beverage vendors. The lines were pretty long last year, so we missed on that one. So we're going to have more stations available. At least we're working on having more stations so people can get food and drink a little quicker than they did last year.
Yeah, you would think it'd be good for business too. I wish that more of the local businesses were open during the tree lighting ceremony. We bring all these people in, and a lot of the stores are closed.
Yeah. So we've got meetings going on already this year. We did last year, and there's been a challenge with the parking. The lack of parking in front of the stores and market square is a challenge because we're setting up in the afternoon. So we are encouraging the businesses to stay open. Most of them, in fact, half of them probably even close early just because they want to get out of there with all the commotion going on. But I agree with you, Rick. I mean,
Customers.
We're bringing 5,000 people to town and there's stores next door. So, other than Lululemon and Williams and Sonoma, most of them shut down. So we're hopeful that they'll remain open this year.
Yeah.
Rick, ain't the music business great?
It can be. It can be. It's fun to throw events and to see all the people show up, and we always get thank you letters or hey, like Joe, hey, I'm new to town. This was great. So it's fun to know that all this, there's like 4th of July, which is obviously coming, so it's front of mind. There's 70 people working behind the scenes while everybody's standing out in the field and enjoying themselves and having a good time. So it's always nice to know that people appreciate all the effort being put in to make it a nice day for so many.
And a shout out to the city staff or the Park and Rec staff. They pitch in on those days, right?
The city staff, I moved here from California 20 years ago, right, and got involved, and I just love it here. I mean, Sally and Joe and the city manager and the city staff and the mayor's office and Jason Wisha. I mean, there couldn't be folks that are more helpful. What do you need? What can we do? How can we do it? The police department, the fire department chiefs, they're all great. And, it's a little Mayberry-ish for those of you that are my age or not, which is wonderful.
It's a Hallmark channel.
The Hallmark Channel movie, especially the tree lighting ceremony. And so it's a wonderful event. And we could not do it without the support of city staff and city government because there's just way too many moving parts for us to do it without, of those 70 people working, 50 of them are city staff employees.
Mm-hmm. It's wonderful to have private organizations like the Friends of the Park and Rec doing these things like Lake Bluff. The parade committee is a private organization. The Lake Bluff Parade is not a government. It's not a Village of Lake Bluff activity, which is a really good thing if you've seen some of the floats in the parade. There would be big problems if it was a government sponsored, but it's not. It's private sponsored, and it's good to see this kind of private partnership with the local governments. Really, because the local government staffs, both Lake Forest and Lake Bluff, really do support these volunteer activities that are the lifeblood of the community.
Yeah. No,
Rick, how do we send money your way?
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, you can just bring checks to my house. No. So if you go to the Lake Forest Park and Recreation Department website, the foundation has a page there where you can go to and you can do online donations. You can, tickets are now available for the 4th of July. We're already selling tickets. The golf outing, I think, is kind of sold out already. But yeah, we have online donations, check writing. You'll see more mailers for us. This beach project, as I said, it's $2.8 million in total to build this pedestrian ramp all the way down and reinforce it. And there's lookout stations and there's various things. It's not just a ramp. So the city's kicking in 1.3 million. We're raising 1.5. So you're going to be hearing a lot from us over the next 18 months in terms of fundraising for these events. Primarily, we've been doing parks. With the pavilion was a $600,000 pavilion out there at Town Line. The Deerpath Community Park, that's kind of underway, and some other stuff going there. So the focus now is down on the beach. with this ramp for our organization. We did the golf course project the last 2 years, and the new lawn area is now open. If you haven't been to Deerpath Community Park, or excuse me, the golf course, and seen that lawn area, it is spectacular for a public facility. So lots of ways to get involved. There are specific things we're looking for fundraising for. So if you do come to our friend's website, you'll see the various activities. There's one-off things that folks, we had a neat story a couple years ago. There was a gentleman in town that when he played high school football, he could not afford a pair of cleats. So he borrowed cleats from a friend of his, when he was in high school. So now, for example, for the youth program, he donates money for cleats for kids, right? Because he didn't have them when he was a kid. So there's neat things like that going on in the community. And so there's shoulder pads, there's helmets, there's baseball batting cages, there's all sorts of things that we would love to add in terms of the amenities that aren't in the budget that, our foundation helps raise money to acquire for the city.
I think we should, the businesses should be solicited as well. Our law firm was one of the sponsors of the tree lighting last year. Yeah. It's easy for the businesses to step up, make a donation. It's tax deductible, and it's good publicity, and everybody likes to see local businesses supporting the local community like this.
That's a great point, Rick. If we do have businesses, we'd love more. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention two that have been huge during my time here, which is Lake Forest Bank and Trust, or Win Trust. Yes. The Waymer family, Ed and Dorothy, have been huge supporters of everything in the community, right, for the last 20 years.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not only our foundation and others. And my gosh, how different would our community be without the support of Win Trust and the Waymer family and others? And then Fields Auto Group. Dan Fields lives in town. And they're a big sponsor again this year, have been years in the past. And so, they have, I think, 18 or 20 dealerships around the country, a bunch in Chicago, as you know, with the Mini Cooper. They have a BMW dealership and a Mercedes dealership as well, and a Land Rover dealership down in Winnetka. But they've been actively involved in the community of Volvo dealerships. So, Dan Fields and his staff have been huge. They're for example, they're putting up cars this year for the golf outing. So there's 2 hole-in-one opportunities. If anybody gets a hole-in-one, they win a car. And so Fields is just going, hey, that'll be fun. Let's do that.
Everybody loves those Mini Coopers,
Dan's a great guy. His family, his legacy of that business, and the auto group and his team have been wonderful supporters of our events over the last.
And the insurance company that's covering that. That's where the money is.
I don't know, Pete. You're a pretty good golfer. You should get out there and take a whack.
Wait, hold on, Rick.
I've tried that so many times. I've never even come remotely close.
Take the duffer.
Yeah,
Rick Amos from the Lake Forest Friends of Parks and Rec, Friends of Park and Rec's Lake Forest. Is that the right way to say it, Rick?
The Friends of Lake Forest Park and Recreation Foundation is our official name. But
yeah, the foundation.
Everybody really calls us the Friends of Parks and Rec. That's kind of our nickname.
Yeah, the Friends. We like friends. Rick, I need as many friends as I can get.
Hey, now you got one.
Okay. Till the show's over.
Yeah.
The Lake Forest Podcast is supported by viewers, listeners, and businesses just like you. Looking for the best pool supplies? Look no further than Dohany's Pool Supplies. With a history dating back to 1967, this family-owned business offers everything families need to keep their pools clean and sparkling, from chemicals to equipment. Plus, customers enjoy free shipping on all orders. Visit Dohany's Pool Supplies today at doheny.com, DOHENY.com, to learn more. Forest Bluff Real Estate Team serves Illinois, Wisconsin, Lake Forest, and Lake Bluff. John Josephitis, Laura Lee Van Fleet, and of course Michelle Parnell. Get a free market analysis now at forestbluffrealestate.com. For the best cannabis in the world, look no further than Iliad Epic Grow. Owned by Lake Bluff's own Rich Ruzich, they are a cannabis cultivation center focusing on hard-to-find small batch products that will delight both the occasional user and ganjier. When visiting Michigan, ask for it by name. Epic Products, exceptional process. For more information, email info@iliadgrow.com. Havey Communications has been helping first responders arrive safely since 1983. It's owned by Lake Forest's own Mike Havey. Check them out at haveycommunications.com. We'd also like to say we're thankful for our Patreon supporters: Matt A., Elizabeth C., Costa, Lance, Otto, RDM, John C., and Helen. Shout out to the Lake Forest Breakfast Group, Broad Stop and Captain Mike's in Kenosha, the Greentown Tavern, and the Frolic Lounge in Waukegan.